What do we call this? What if we become?
Hey everyone, welcome to the stream. How's it going tonight? Thanks for joining me on this rainy Wednesday evening, or excuse me, Thursday evening here in my local hometown. Hopefully you guys are having some better weather where you are at. Just checking on some audio levels here and we'll get ready to get started. Alright, what I've got here is not one Bossk, but two Bossk. I don't know what to call a group of Bossk. If you've got an idea, leave it in the chat. But we have one in each pose, so I've got the Bossk with the grenade in his hand, rifle in the other, and the Bossk that's holding the rifle with both hands. So one of these is actually going to be my personal miniature. This is going to be for me, the one with the grenade in his hand, and this other one, the customer asked for a rifle pose. So I've also went ahead and started prepping some miniature bases for later, and I've got two of these miniature bases that are drying, and hopefully by the time I'm ready to base they will be dry. What I've done is real simple. I have a product that I use on all my bases called Liquitex Resin Sand. Comes in this big, nice, chunky jar. You can do hundreds of bases with one of these jars, and all I do is I keep a little tub off to my side here. This is a jello shot container, for lack of a better term, and I pre-mix it with some brown paint, and I've had this jar pre-mixed probably for 3 months, and it stays in this little tub, stays nice and wet. I take a putty spatula, or a plastic paint knife, paint spatula, whatever you want to call it, put some on there, smear it on the base, give it some nice texture by stippling it, and then let it dry like that. And once it's dry, we can wash it, add our grass, do whatever we want once we get there. So but that'll be later in the stream, probably one of the last steps we do, once we're waiting for our Bosks to dry. So let's go ahead and get started, shall we? Sorry if my camera bounces. I'm working on trying to get it a little bit more stable. Bear with me as you get to see my blue tape line that I've set out. I'm trying to learn where my streaming box is, and I want you guys to be able to see everything the best as possible. So, sorry for a second. Hopefully you don't get motion sickness at all. That should be better. So as long as I'm in this blue box, you should be able to see my miniatures. So that's the general idea there. Alrighty. So we're going to go ahead and get started. And the very first thing we need to do is we need to go ahead and start painting some Bossk skin tones in. So for that, I have found this color is my favorite so far, and it is a sulfide ochre. All of the paints I'm going to use today are going to be made by by the Army Painter. They're all Army Painter war paints. I have went ahead and put stainless steel ball bearings in all of them to help them get mixed up when I'm going. You might be able to hear that shaking around as I shake the paints. When you first open an Army Painter paint, you do have to shake them pretty well for the very first time. But once you get that done, it shouldn't be an issue. So you just shake it up as you would any other paint, 10 to 15, 20 seconds. I'm shaking this one a little bit more than I normally do just because I'm talking. Get them shooken up and be ready to go. So we're going to squeeze some of that out onto my wet palette up here. And pick up my number 1 brush and get to putting some paint on this miniature. I'm not using anything fancy for this. I'm using a Princeton number 1, something cheap, just because that's what I have. Hang on a second, I'm getting some messages. Alright. Sorry about that. Back to painting. The joys of being live messaging. Or not live messaging. Joys of being live streaming. So, one other thing I've done is I have not glued any of this miniature together. These Bossk miniatures stick together real well without any kind of glue. For while we're painting, that way I can take them apart as needed so that I can get to some of those more difficult to reach areas. So we're just applying a real thinned, not real thin, but thinned base coat, and then we'll come back over and we're going to hit all these areas one more time with thin my paints right on my wet palette. And something new for this stream that I don't think I've had before is down in the lower left. You should be able to see what the name of the songs are that are playing and the artists, because I've had people ask me what it is. So, alright, we're going to hit all the skin tones, and we're going to assembly line these two miniatures. So I'll do the skin tones on one, skin tones on the other, and we'll keep doing back and forth like that. If you're watching, please feel free to leave a message in the chat. I would love to hear from you. Whether you're watching the live stream or if you're catching this recorded, because I'm going to leave these videos up, because I'm hoping, I had some feedback on the ones I uploaded from Facebook, and the quality of the stream wasn't very good. Facebook doesn't allow you to stream anything higher than 720p, and so that's part of why I switched to YouTube for streaming, is it's better for paint. 720p, you just lose some of the detail when you're streaming, and it can make it difficult to see. So I know I already did a Bossk live stream. He's the new hotness right now though, and I wanted to make sure that you guys had the best quality possible to make sure that you were getting to paint your miniature the way you wanted to. So if you're just joining, thanks for joining us. Glad you're here. Still putting the space tone on this Bossk. We're up to the face now. We should be able to get both these guys done in just a couple hours. We knocked out the other one in just about 2 hours, including streaming issues and delays and stuff. And so hopefully we won't have any, and we'll be able to just keep streaming straight on through. So, it's in Cleveland, Tennessee, called ATC, American Team Championship. You may have heard of it from friends that play Warhammer, if you have any. 40k. They are really pushing to try to get Legion to be a very large event there. I am one of the sponsors at that event, along with a few others. I know that the SW Stabcast, those guys that, good friends of mine, they are sponsoring as well. Dan Wolf Games is sponsoring it, as is War Worlds, who I think is possibly streaming it if we can. I don't know. There's the 83rd Legion, I think they are, is sponsoring it. Corvus Games, I think, is sponsoring. TableWar.com is sponsoring. We've got quite a few sponsors. It's going to be a nice little event with some good, great, I should say, prize support. And if you're able to, come on out. Tickets are still on sale. They have not sold out. And while it may not be an RPQ or anything, we're working towards that, and hopefully going to be able to provide that kind of support in the very near future. But you could come on out, try to take away some of these prizes from the Chattanooga and Knoxville guys, and possibly people coming up from Atlanta, because it's really... We went last year and it was a true team event, and they realized that it was not, probably, Legion's competitive team scene is just not quite there yet. So they've made it a singles event, even though it's called the American Team Championship, and we're going to have a blast. So come on out if you can. Tickets can be found online. Just look up ATC. I think there's WHATC is the website. You can still buy them. They will have tickets on sale on site, but if you purchase in advance, it helps us to know how many tables to bring. I am bringing my Endor table that I have. If you go back to my Facebook page, you can find that one set up and see what it looks like. I don't have any plans to do train streaming just yet, but we'll see. Train streaming takes a little bit larger setup than I've got for streaming. And there's a lot of guys that are doing it already, like the Train Studio's doing well. I know Sean Morris over there has come by and checked out my stream a couple times, and figured I'd give him a props. Dan Wolf Games, I think he streams his as well. Pretty sure he does. I've seen it. He and I are good buddies and have partnered together on a lot of projects. If you get a chance to see his streams whenever he's up, I'd recommend checking that out. He's a good guy. Alright, back to the second coat on this guy. We finished the other one. And what we're going to do is, once we get all these painted up, I know this sulfide ochre looks pretty yellow right now, but once we apply that strong tone wash that we're going to use later, it will really help this guy to darken up a bit. So second layer on the skin here. I'm keeping my paints keeping my paints a little bit thin intentionally. Prior to streaming, I went ahead and I do all my priming off screen because I don't want to have to hear my airbrush crank up while I'm talking here. So I use Badger Stenolres primer. I may be butchering the name of how that's pronounced, but it's nice because I can stream indoors using my airbrush, or prime indoors using my airbrush. Excuse me, my brain's all over the place with language today. But just a simple zenithal highlight. I didn't go all the way down to, if you work with a little bit of thin paint, you see me reaching up to the top of the screen, that's where my wet palette is at, in frame. So long-term plans is to get a second camera set up so that you guys can see my wet palette and see what the colors look like up there and how I'm thinning things. But I'm not quite there yet. That'll have to wait just a little bit. I just had to buy a new laptop for streaming, so let me see something. I'm getting a YouTube. It says I'm not sending enough video to keep streaming. Hopefully that clears up. Sorry about that. I think it was just a hiccup in the connection for a second. AT&T was supposed to have come out and done some work on my lines. Hopefully that fixed things. If I start talking weird when I stop painting, especially if you see me reaching up towards my computer up there, it usually means I've stuck my paintbrush in the corner of my mouth and holding it there like I would a pencil or something while I have my hands free, because I don't want to clean the brush off and set it down necessarily. So skin tones locked in on both these guys. And we can move on to our yellow jumpsuit. So, the color I have found that I like a lot for the yellow jumpsuit is Army Painter's Moondust. Once you wash it out with a nice soft tone wash or something, it really deepens it a little bit, and I feel looks more like the pictures from the set that I've seen. And it's not too yellow. I've seen a lot of them out there, and I'm not, again, each their own their colors, but they're doing some pretty bright yellow jumpsuits out there. And that's just not for me. So, alrighty. If you watched my last Bossk live stream, I did paint the hose on his back black. I think this time I'm going to do red and make it match the one around his neck. We're going to see. I'll talk about that when we get there, though. So, finished shaking up my Moondust yellow. Get some thin paint out on the brush. And remember, 2 thin coats are better than 1 thick, so we're going to apply this, and to be honest, the moon dust may take more than 2, maybe 3. Yellow is notorious for poor coverage. So we'll start here on this guy that's got the grenade in his hand. If you're just joining chat, feel free to, or just joining us, feel free to drop a message in the chat. Let me know you're here. I would love to interact with my viewers. So off to the right over here is my water well. I have a split water well, one side for washing brushes and one side for keeping clean paint for dipping in for when I need paint to thin my, or excuse me, for one of them has clean water in it, not paint. So one side's for cleaning brushes, and the other side is for getting clean water to thin my paints out. So sometimes I talk faster than my brain thinks. I'm sure I'm not the only one. Again, thanks for coming in here tonight and spending your Thursday evening with me. I'm sure you have a lot of choices of things you could be doing, but I appreciate you watching me. If you don't care to, if you're liking the video, let me know in the comments. If you think you know someone that would like to continue to watch the rest of the stream with me, share this around, feel free to. And if you want to catch the rest of our live streams, if you haven't already, please subscribe, hit that subscribe button, and turn on notifications, and it will let you know when I go live. Or whenever I post a new video, because I do have a tutorial, true tutorial video that I'm working on. I was hoping to have it done tonight, but live streaming took priority, and so depending on how long these take, I will work on it afterwards. But it's how to paint, if you follow my page, how to paint the ATRT that I posted earlier today. Simple. I just show kind of some of the techniques that I use, as well as I do talk about the colors, but those tutorials are more for here's how I do it versus here's the colors that I use. You can match the colors if you want, of course, but my goal is to teach you guys how to paint, not here's how to copy my paint. If you want to copy my paint, it's flattering. I know a lot of people have commented on the scheme of those ATRTs and really liked the scheme of the Rebel Commission that I'm working on for Dan Wolf's game, that dark blue and dark blue, gray, and black scheme. It is I kind of like it. So, alright. Base coat down on that guy. First coat. Move on to the second one. Boom. Another one without any paint on. And so, let's see how quickly we can get 2 Bosks done to a little bit higher than tabletop quality, which is all I shoot for. I'm not a golden brush winner. I don't plan to be. I just don't have the patience to paint to that level. I want stuff that looks good on the table, that people are going to say, wow, that looks cool. And that if I were to damage it playing, I'm not going to be all heartbroken saying, I spent 6 hours painting that guy's eyes. More power to those. Hey, Rob. I paint so fast. I try. I'll show you my shortcuts that I use. One of them is during my base coating phase, I am not super neat. You'll see me get paint somewhere, and one way that I have found to save time is to save all my touch-ups till the end of my base painting. Unless it's something major, but save all my touch-ups till the end, go back, and look, because a lot of times, if you don't notice it, you're not going to notice it on the table. So, people spend a lot of time dinking and trying to have a perfect miniature before they are done with their miniature. So, tip number 1. Save all your touch-ups till the end of the base coating phase, of each phase. So, it's not like I'm going to go and touch up after I wash and everything. Just got your course set, huh? We all started somewhere. Are you just starting painting? Like, have you painted other miniature games, Rob? Alright, we might have to de-arm Bossk here in a second so that I can get to the stuff under his gun. That's okay, man. I'd love to see pictures when you get it done. Feel free to post them to my page. No matter how good, bad you think they are, you painted them. Be proud of them. Because you're miles ahead of other people out there. Alright. Yeah, I'm going to have to set Bossk down for a second while I try to take his arm off without breaking him off my paint handle. But yeah, if you post pictures over to my page, I'll give you constructive criticism, feedback, or tell you how awesome they are, and tell you how much I wish I could paint to the same level that you are. And that goes for anybody out there watching. Feel free, find me on Facebook, post to my page. I love giving advice. It's free advice, and it's worth about as much as I charge you for it, so... Sorry if the stream cuts out for a minute. Oh, a vet. I've been painting for a few years, 10 years, but I don't claim to be a perfect miniature painter. I just enjoy doing it, so I figured I would share my hobby with y'all. Bear with me, I need to... work on something here for a second, stream-wise. Okay. Let me know how the video is going in the chat if you don't care to. If everything's going okay, because I'm getting some weird error messages, but it appears to be working fine, so I'm not sure. Alright. Uh-oh. Got a hair on my brush. First coat on both Bosks are done. We're going to move back to the first one. Rob, that's part of why I started taking commissions, was to support my hobby financially. And so now, for the most... yeah. Thanks, Rob. Appreciate that feedback. He keeps giving me like an error message that I'm not streaming enough video and viewers might lose quality, but I don't know. We'll see. So this guy's jumpsuits are probably going to take 3 coats of yellow, unlike others. So this moon dust, especially because it's a lighter yellow, is really difficult to get coverage with. So I may actually, once I finish the second coat on each of them, may move on to another part and let it fully dry, because that's another tip, is that make sure you let your yellows and your reds and your blues fully dry in between layers. Otherwise what you end up doing is pulling off paint if they're not fully dry. So like this guy is actually not as dry as I would want him to be before applying a second coat. So I'm just hitting some of the bigger areas, and then we'll we'll come back to it in a second. So. All right. As I collect more Army Painter paints, I tend to try to just use straight from the bottle, especially when I'm doing guides for you guys, because it's easier to just show you, hey, you can get this color and make it look nice. But when I was learning, I started with 20 paints, and I just mixed to my heart's content to get the colors that I wanted. You don't have to have, I mean, I've probably got 75 Army Painter paint colors now. There's definitely more than that out there, and I slowly am collecting them, but you don't have to. I know there's other paint video makers that will give you their mix ratios. I am just not that careful about it. I squeeze a little bit out onto my wet palette of each color if I'm mixing, and then just mix it until it looks right. So it's real hard. Like, they'll say, oh, you can mix a 2-to-1 ratio of, you know, this brown and that green, and you'll get the color you want. Whereas I'm like, well, if you just keep mixing until it looks nice. But with Bossk, I'm just going to be doing pure, straight from the pot, or straight from the bottle, Army Painter paints colors, because I've got all the colors I need to match. So you may have missed my initial. That's the skin tone we're using. I prefer Army Painter for various reasons. I do have a couple pots of Citadel paints that I use for, because I just like that certain color, that exact shade of a color, and I haven't found the equivalent in Army Painter. So I have 3 Citadels that I use sometimes. I have retired one of them because I have found a shade of Army Painter I like that is close enough. But I've even been trying to paint without those 3 Citadels. I just like Army Painter. They're cheap. They come in dropper bottles, which, especially for new painters, dropper bottles are a lifesaver because you only squeeze out a little drop. Whereas with Citadel, you dip in the pot, you pull a whole bunch of paint out, and inevitably you end up pulling out much more paint than you actually need. And so, when you do that, you waste a lot of paint. And paint's expensive. For Army Painter paints, you can get a mega pack for, it's $100 MSRP. It's 50 paints in combinations of paint swatches. Comes with a regiment brush that is nice. I have one that is well used and well loved. This is my Army Painter regiment brush. As you can see, I've even cleaned the name brand off of it because I've cleaned the brush so much that it's now relegated to my wash brush. But you get that in the kit, and yeah, the Army Painter stuff is good stuff. So, all right. While we wait for the yellows to dry, we're going to move on to another coat, and that's another way to paint fast. Is to make sure that you're not breaking too much in between layers. So, for his chest piece, right in here, I'm going to use this color, Spaceship Exterior. This is my go-to white. And if you're newer to painting, white is white. This is matte white on the left. This is Spaceship Exterior on the right. And this is actually a really light gray. And the reason for that is, if you go straight to matte white, you have no color to highlight up to. And so start with a really light gray. It'll trick your eye into thinking it's white. And then later on, after you wash it and do all the things that you do with paint, it'll look white. So you won't ever, honestly, I probably hardly ever pull my white off the shelf. It just doesn't get used often. So, alright, jumpsuit time, or spacesuit time. I agree with the dropper bottles. I used to use P3 paints a lot, and their flip-top bottles like Citadel. I like their paints. I like their pigmentation is nice. They're expensive. They are hard to get a hold of because they're not super common. They're made by Privateer Press, and that's the company that makes War Machine miniatures, if you're not familiar with them. Tell Army Painter they owe me some money then. Oh yeah, Spaceship Exterior is my go-to white. And even on the miniature, it looks white. Like, but if I were to paint white right next to it, you would be able to tell the difference. Very much so. I've got a few favorite colors for different reasons. Spaceship Exterior is one of them. Hashtag sponsored video, I wish. I'm working it. I'm trying to. I've been in contact with Army Painter, actually. Not quite there yet as far as... they want to see a little bit more exposure. So we're working on it. For those of you who are watching also, I want to plug, I will be at Gen Con in a couple weeks, roaming around the halls. I might be, at Thursday I'll be playing in the Star Wars Legion tournament all day. But outside of that, I don't have anything scheduled yet. I might have something Friday afternoon for a few hours that I might have volunteered for. You guys going to get back to me and let me know. But if you're going to be there, I would love to meet up with you. I'll be easy to find on Thursday. I'll be in the FFG area playing games. I will have a shirt on that says Mustafar Misfits. That's the name of Dan Wolf Games and I, little two-man partnership that we've come up with. On the back of it is going to be my logo on top and his logo below that. So if you see a guy wearing a black shirt with a white jagged brush logo on the back, that's mine. At Gen Con, there is a tournament on Thursday. Big one. It's the regionals or nationals or something like that, but it's one of the big ones. They are sold out from what I'm seeing. There's a tournament Thursday, there's a tournament Friday, and if you do well enough on Thursday or Friday, then you get to play again Saturday. So I don't have any plans on Saturday because, I mean, let's be honest, I'll probably lose. I don't play well, I just paint. Oh, Legion it's an FFG game. FFG has a very good organized play structure going. To find... There's a website run by a guy named LJ Pena. He's a big promoter in the Legion world. And I think it's called, like, Legion Tournament Circuit or something. If you go on the Facebook page and look up, you'll be able to find his post for it, and you can find game stores and stuff in your local area that play. If you're in St. Louis, I am sure there is somewhere. Just getting some second coats here on this white spaceship stuff while waiting for stuff to dry. So, all right. I'm going to do the little things around his feet, ankles. They're the little bandoliers, I guess. I don't know what they are. And for that color, I don't know if that's the color I want to go for. trying to find the color I want to use. Bear with me for a second. Camera might shake real quick. I'm opening a drawer. I haven't finished printing enough racks to hold all the new colors I picked up. So we're going to go with this dark stone, I think. Let me shake it up. Rob, I think it's Legion Tournament Circuit. I don't know the website for it. If you look it up, or if you get on the Discord chat, they should be able to help you out there. I don't have any of that information handy, though, off the top of my head. Let me check the color of this real quick. Yeah, that'll work. So, I'm going to use Army Painter Darkstone, and we're going to end up using that on two different areas. It's going to be the buttstock of the color of the stock of the weapon, as well as the color of that bandolier thing around his ankle. So, I'm going to use it in place of Citadel's Rhinox hide that I've used in the past. This is my first time using this color for that purpose, so I may or may not end up liking it. We'll see. Yeah, this will work fine. Once I get the paint on the miniature, I can tell pretty quick. Once you've been practicing for a little while, you start trying to get an idea of what a paint will look like on the miniature once you've watched it, which is what you have to keep in mind as I just stick my hand in a wet paint puddle that I put on my mat. You have to remember, these paints that you're using, if you're going to wash your miniature with a ink or a wash or something, are going to change tones. So don't paint for the color you want right now. Paint for that little bit different color that you're going to get once you take that step. There's not, just because it's not on that website doesn't mean it doesn't exist. That website is fairly new and he's still promoting it. I feel like there's a store in St. Louis that I've ordered minis from in the past. For some reason. I just can't remember the name of it. Have you tried posting in the Legion Facebook group and just saying, hey, does anybody play in the St. Louis area? I'm sure they do. I mean, the game's not small anymore, it's growing. And Miniature Market, probably. Yeah, that might be it. I do order from Miniature Market. I just guess I didn't realize it came from St. Louis until like right now. Do they not have a retail store? Do they not play games there? I mean, I know they have a retail store because you have the option of customer hold and pick up. I just don't know if they game there or not. I'm not in that, I don't live up in that area, so. Although, my Bossk pre-orders came from Miniature Market, and they really burned me on that. I'm not going to go too far deep into it, but I didn't receive them until this week. And they've been out for quite a minute now. Alright. Next thing we can do. Oh, they don't have Legion there. Gotcha. Alright, so I used to use my custom black mix. This is one of the ones that I do mix up, but while I'm going to keep it and use it for certain things, I am going to try to use more standardized color paints here. And so I'm going to go with, kind of like I use spaceship exterior if you're white, necromancer cloak is my black. And once you wash it out with a dark tone, it's going to look really black, and it's going to be real easy to highlight it up. For the same reasons, I don't use matte black. You can see the difference a little bit more. So matte black is right here on the left. Spaceship exterior is on the, or necromancer cloak is on the right. And you can see those paint colors pretty well. So necromancer cloak is becoming my new on-stream black. I am hoping I have enough gunmetal to do these. It's pretty empty if you can hear it. Alright, so we're putting on our necromancer cloak on all the black areas of Bossk, which isn't a whole lot, to be quite fair. Hand slipped and gives me a chance to show you a new trick. Wet your brush, go over the area that slipped before it dries, and there was black on his nose, now there's not. Make sure you get it before it dries though, otherwise that little trick doesn't work. Well, just post in the group, Rob, and I am sure you'll be positively surprised at the number of people in your area that you just may not know where they play yet. A good tip. Hey Dan, thanks for joining. Speaking of that scoundrel that I was talking about earlier. You're bringing your Mustafar Misfit shirt to Gen Con, right? All right. On to the other Bossk. Trying to remember if the colors around his arms were black. I think, were they black or brown? I think they were black around the cuffs. So this guy's going to get disarmed as well. Well, if you have a bunch of people coming up and saying, hey, I watch your painting video streams, I told them that I'd be wearing mine. And so... I did tell him that mine has my logo up top. So for Dan, his is reversed. His logo's on the top. I am much more pleased with the YouTube stream so far than the Facebook stream. It seems to have been more reliable, and I feel like the stream's at a higher quality than the Facebook one was. Listen, I didn't say whether or not they remember, I just threw the information out there. It's not my job to make them remember. I know I'm a little bit far away painting these guys. What I'm doing is I'm getting the little cuff around the arm, but since I don't have my paint handle to brace myself, I need to brace against the table. The other thing you can do to touch little spots up is I licked my thumb and got the wet paint off. Works as well. It works for little small areas where you don't necessarily want to clean your brush yet. Well, and I can stream at a higher quality, so 1080p versus 720p. I'm working to get 2 Bosks painted in the same time I painted year 1. One for me and one for another customer. Gotta have my Bossk for that ATC this weekend. Are you playing or streaming? So do I have a store or do I just take orders? Rob, who are you talking about as far as commission painting? I usually just give quotes via Messenger. And people send me the list of what they want painted. I give them a quote. And I paint them. I paint to order. Or have a paint queue. I have a very large paint queue right now. I probably... If you follow my page at all, I've been painting a lot of different projects at the same time. So doing some Legion, then I'll jump in and I've got this customer that I'm painting a set of Dungeons and Dragons themed dogs for. They're all in fantasy armor and stuff, called Dungeon Doggies. And I've got to do some tanks here soon, but I'm not sure if I'll be able to do the Legion tanks on stream because I use a lot of airbrush for that. And as much as I would love to do that, my streaming setup just isn't large enough to cover my airbrushing booth. Because it takes over my whole desk. And it's loud. Well, go back and scroll through my my page if you have liked and followed me on Facebook, and you'll see just within the last few days I've been posting some. So, alright, now that we got those all done, we're going to go back and put our third and hopefully final coat of yellow on all this. And then after we get done with our yellow, I'm going to go and we'll do the straps on his armor once the yellow dries. I don't want to try to do that, those straps, without the yellow being dry, because it'll wick color paint into the yellow. And that's never a fun day. So I paint all kinds of things, not just Legion. Legion just happens to be what I've been doing my videos on right now. Uh-oh. Just realized I missed a whole area that was supposed to be yellow. Oh well. We'll work on that. I've done Kingdom Death Monster miniatures. I do a lot of board game miniatures. I'll paint just about anything a customer sends me. I'm not hugely fond of painting Warhammer 40k. Not my favorite format to paint. I get tired of painting little tiny skulls. On everything. Warhammer 40k likes to put little tiny skulls on everything. I'm not sure what I'll stream tomorrow night once I finish these guys up. Maybe some pizza cannons. I need to get some of those painted. I may do some dungeon doggies again. I need to get that out the door too. I'm trying to get some orders out the door before Gen Con so I have spending money for the con. Still working on this yellow color on the jumpsuits. Like I said, it typically takes a few coats of yellow to get an acceptable level of coverage that I'm happy with. I also have two Sabines I need to paint, but I don't need those for this weekend, but I do have to get them out before next Friday. So I'll probably redo the Sabine stream that I copied over from Facebook as well. Because I have had specific requests for that one. People want to see that one redone because the quality just wasn't that great. Thanks to Facebook's streaming platform not being the best. So my only fear about switching over to YouTube is that the natural viewership just doesn't seem to be there for the live streams yet, but I'm sure that'll come with time. we're going to do now is pull his head off. Ta-da! Do that on both of them. I realized I forgot the little black marks on this guy's cloak, or on his uniform. They have these little valve-looking cover things. I'm going to paint that on this one. I did the other one. Missed this guy. Anyways, Bossk has no head now. There's a reason for that. In just a second. Another tip, if you're just painting for... I have painted a Sabine. And lucky for you, I've got her right here. That's not my Sabine. That is a Sabine for Dan Wolf Games. That was his order he placed with me. So, but back to Bossk. Abomination Gore. It is a reddish color. I'm going to use that for the red around Bossk's collar as well as the hose on his back. I did the Dan Wolf Games Bossk that I did the other night. This is what I'm hoping these guys will look like once they're all finished. I did his hose black back here. We're going to do the same hose red on these other guys. So, Abomination Gore. It's a nice deep red, but it's not bright. Really subdued red. But it shows up nice in the areas that I need it to, so I think you'll agree in just a minute that it's almost the perfect color for what we're trying to do here. So Rob, if you go look on my YouTube channel playlist, I have a live stream video of Sabine up that I copied over from Facebook when I was doing Facebook live streams versus YouTube. So you can see it on there, but it is only in 720p, so it can be a little bit grainy at times. And it's in a two-parter because I was having internet connectivity issues at the time and dropped my stream. So same as Bossk, the old Bossk. This is these are the second and third. I did. Hang on. So the edges are spaceship exterior, and then I used a sponging technique. I'm trying to get it in there so it looks nice. Used a sponging technique on the blade to give it that glow effect. I won't get to show the sponging technique that I used in this video, there's no use for it, but keep an eye out for the ATRT tutorial that I'll be putting up, because I do use that sponge technique in that video. Works great for battle damage on vehicles too. Or paint chipping or anything like that. Alright, collars are done. Let's get this hose done. Remember, to save time, we're not doing touch-ups just yet. We will come back at the very end, give the models a once-over, and do any touch-ups if we made mistakes. It is much easier to touch up after the fact than to try to do it as you go, because your paints are still wet. again, if you're watching this and you haven't, please feel free to like the video and share it. And if you like what you're seeing and want to see more, make sure to hit that subscribe button. Turn notifications on by hitting the little bell next to it, and you'll get a notification anytime we go live or post a new video. I don't have a set streaming schedule just yet. It's kind of just when I can get to it. I am still trying to establish what that's going to look like for me. I'm probably leaning towards Mondays and Thursdays as being regular twice a week streaming for painting. So we'll see. Once I get that finalized, I will post it up in the description of the channel as well as on Facebook so that you can add it to your calendars if you want. I'm also trying to decide whether I want to do once a week regular streaming and just do pop-up streams and like make every Monday night be a regular stream or something, and then pop-up streams in between, which would leave me more time to do maybe a tutorial video every week or something. I doubt I'll be able to do full paint tutorials like I did with the ATRT. I think I'm going to try to leave maybe full miniature painting to the live stream. And then I think the tutorial videos will be shorter in nature and focus on technique that you can use on multiple different miniatures. We'll see. Alrighty. We have this two different colors. First I'm going to use Army Painter Uniform Gray. And what this is going to be is he has a little box on his chest and some other things. That primarily that little box on his chest is going to be this uniform gray. So if you haven't painted a Veers model and you need one, and you need a color, that makes a great color for his uniform too, is that uniform gray. So get the little box on his chest, and there's a little piece next to it. That's what we're painting right there. You don't have to worry about getting all the way perfect down against the white, because what will happen is, and this is another quick painting tip for painting faster, is your wash is going to pool in those little areas, and it will cover up a lot of that for you. And so if you're just trying to do nice miniatures that look fun to play with, use that little tip. You don't have to be perfect. Your wash is magic. It's liquid skill, I promise. Let your paints work for you, not against you. All right. Although, I see a spot I missed on the black, so we'll touch the black in real quick. Your gaps can't be too large. Alright, the other color that we're going to use for the other straps is an ash gray, which if you look at the two, uniform gray is on the left, ash gray is on the right, and then spaceship exterior is going to be on the far right. Three very different shades of gray, so this is going to be in between. There's almost 50 shades of gray out there. You don't have to laugh at that. It was a bad joke. Please don't laugh at it. It was terrible. But that's going to be all of our straps for Bossk, is out of that ash gray. Alright. Again, you don't have to be perfect here about going right all the way up against the pants, because your wash will help cover up some of that little missed step areas. You don't want too big of gaps though. But you'll learn, and it just takes practice about how far will your wash cover up for you. I need to check what color I did something on this other Bossk. Brown. Forgot about the leather brown on his belt. We'll get that here in a bit. Alright, first one straps down. If you're just joining the stream, thanks for stopping in. Glad to have you. Can't tell you how much I appreciate you spending your Thursday evening with me while we work on painting 2 Bossk miniatures, 1 in each pose. We are probably about 50 to 60% of the way, or nah, we're more than that. Probably 70% of the way through base coating these guys. Feel free to ask questions. Want to know why I'm doing certain things, how I'm doing certain things. I will be more than happy to give you free advice that is worth as much as you paid for it. Satisfaction guaranteed or your money back. Alright. I'm just real quick adding some yellow into that spot that I missed on that Bossk when I was painting him the first time. And I missed a spaceship exterior spot. This isn't touch-up, this is legit missed paint spots, so I forgot that I was doing these hoses white this time instead of black. Alright, so while we're waiting, I'm going to take gunmetal. Hopefully I have enough. be really sparing with it, and we're going to use this on the guns and the grenade. So thin it just a touch, and move this arm out of the way. We're going to start with the grenade, and I'll show you a little trick for getting the grenade to glow later. The metallic line of army painters don't require as much thinning, I have found, out of the pot. So keep that in mind when you're working with them. If you thin them too far, they actually don't cover super well. Alright, grenade down. Another gun down. I've not painted this gun arm yet before. This is my first time doing this pose. I've seen people doing the 2 gun poses, and no, just no. Third trick, don't paint areas of the models that you're not going to see very well. So the inside of this gun, is going to be pressed directly against Bossk's body. I'm not going to put a whole lot of details into painting that part, because you are never going to see it. Like, ever. You can't. It's going to be up against his body. So don't waste time. Spend your time on the areas that are going to add improvement to your miniature. I'm going to paint, I painted it gunmetal just so it's there, but I'm not going to highlight and do all kinds of fun stuff to it. If I were entering a competition, I might, but I'm not competition painting outside of, like, best painted army competitions at tournaments. So, alright, next thing. We need oak brown. This is what I'm going to use for the base tone of my leather that goes around his waist. And then we'll highlight it up with the true leather brown after we wash it. So, oak brown onto the palette. Again, I'm just showing you the colors that I used. You are free to use whatever colors you want on your miniature. You paint to what you think looks good. And remember when you're painting to have fun. If you're not having fun, you'll see it in your paint quality. I know Dan will look at some of the pictures of stuff that I painted, and he'll say, "Do you have fun painting that?" And you can usually tell whether or not I'm going to say yes or no based on just how far I push some of the level of quality on stuff. And I like to think that I try to treat everybody's stuff the same, but to be fair, there's just some models that are more fun to paint for me than others. Or sometimes you get tired of painting the same miniatures over and over again. So if you get a large commission like Dan has given me a lot of Rebel Troopers to paint, I can't paint them back to back. I'll do a squad and then I'll go do a bunch of other stuff and then I'll come back and do a squad. Even though it would probably be faster for me to just assembly line them out, you'll see the quality drop quickly as I get tired of painting 40 Rebel Troopers. Luckily, he's been pretty understanding and patient. All right. So, those are blocked in. Just checking to see if I need to add any more. And it does not appear so. All right. So last thing. He has these little straps that run along his legs. We've got to paint those. And those are going to be painted spaceship exterior. So, grab some of our spaceship exterior on my size 0 brush. And go right along these little straps. Remember, it doesn't have to be perfect. Your wash will hide a lot for you. My goal is to do realistic paint jobs that you can do at home. I respect those guys that take it to the next level that I just don't care to. More power to them. I'm more likely to play games that the miniatures are painted rather than gray. So if I spend all my time painting, then I will never play the games. There's just an area that I didn't like on this arm. So and that, my friends, is a fairly base coated Bossk. I'm going to touch some of the yellow areas up that could use a little bit of darkening. So like right in here, hit some of the high ridges. This is that touch-up phase I was referring to. On this back here, there's a couple areas that the gray is kind of showing through, so I'm going to take a little bit, just a little bit thicker yellow than I have been, and just touch some of those higher areas because we really want to make sure that our raised yellows are the same color as the rest of them. I'm not sure why my audio keeps cutting in and out from the stream, from the music. Same thing on this other guy. Had to check a message on my phone. Sorry about that. Alright. Noticed I got a little gray onto that thing. Quick touch up with the necromancer cloak and it's fixed. And then go back into my ash gray here real quick. And I have some black showing through that I inadvertently got onto. There. Let me restart my audio music. Let's see if that fixes that. Alright. Spaceship exterior to darken these little straps real quick, especially since I accidentally got ash gray onto one of them. And by darken, I mean to make the color a little bit brighter. And same thing on this one, which I don't ever think I actually did the strap on this side. And lastly on this guy, uniform gray, I want to darken this little hose right across the top here. And a little bit of ash gray. I know I should have said lastly, I could do this all day also. Alright. I'm noticing in between the thumbs on fingers on this guy, I missed some paint. Just checking all my skin to make sure that it's all covered. Preferably without blobbing on a bunch of paint like I just did. Let's check this one. Ooh, I saw some yellow that I missed. Right up under this leg is a big gray area, and that would have looked really bad. Alright, so we have two base coated Bosks now. They both look like this. Ta-da! See if I can get them both in focus. So, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put them back together. So that when we wash them, they are washed assembled. Just kidding, we're not quite done. I forgot a color, but it will only take a minute to do said color. We have to paint his nails. He needs a manicure. Alright, so for his nails, Army Painter Skeleton Bone. It's another common color I use quite frequently. And manicure. Just really roughening some nails here. We'll also end up using this on his teeth a little bit later on. Alright, one set of nails done. And I blobbed that on there. Good job. And for the last thing that I'm going to do on both these guys is I'm going to take some more of that oak brown and do the pistol grips here. Sorry, not oak brown, this was the dark stone. I know I painted them metal to begin with, but I think I like them better as a wood grain. So, one down. Two down. Ta-da. Alright. So we need to just make sure we give them just a minute. We really want to make sure those paints are completely dry before we start washing the miniatures. So while I'm doing that, I am going to put his teeth on real quick on his face, because we want those to darken up a little bit when we wash it. So for that I keep a brush that I make sure to keep a nice point on for doing just that fine detail work. Why am I all out of focus all of a sudden? Ta-da! Come on back, camera. Come on. Not sure what's going on here. Let's try that again. Alright. One set of Bossk teeth done. Second set of Bossk teeth done. Real quick. And then once we wash over it, it'll help cover up some of those inconsistencies there. So, alright, cover up my wet palette. I have a different palette that I use for my washes, just an old cheapy $1 well. And so we're going to use a couple different washes. We're going to use dark tone, strong tone, and I hope I have enough soft tone for this. have more ordered. I don't think I have any in my drawer. I've got dark tone, strong tone, which I may need that strong tone. Nope. I don't have any more. So, we're going to have to try to stretch our soft tone. Alright. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to apply our strong tone to his skin. That's going to be our skin wash. And that bottle of strong tone is empty. But I have another one. Get my wash brush. I'm actually going to use a different one. I have an old worn out. Basically, if it's a worn out brush, it becomes my wash brush. And we're just going to go over the whole skin tone with this strong tone. And that's going to darken up and provide us some natural highlights and shadows. So we're also going to go over all of our leather with this strong tone. Toenails with it as well. And the buttstock of the weapon. So basically none of our browns are getting this color of washed. And the face. Be liberal on the face. Really want to make sure it seeps into all those little nooks and crannies on that head to make it look real nice. That's what our skin tone ends up looking like after. Once it dries, it will look pretty. Second Bossk. Usually I would do the soft tone first and work my way out. However, I have it turned upside down right now to try to make sure I drip enough of that wash out to get both of these guys' uniforms. Because I think I'm going to be out. My order of paints did ship today, so hopefully we'll get it here in time. Just washing a miniature. I know I didn't paint the dew claws on the back of his leg. They're so small that if you paint them when you wash them, you lose them anyways, so I'll highlight them later and just put a dot on the top of them to make them look like they're highlighted. Again, the key to having stuff look nice but fast, is to not waste time on the areas that don't need to be wasted on. If you're watching this video on record, thanks for spending some time watching my streams. I greatly appreciate it. Y'all are helping me to stay motivated and enjoy this hobby a little more each and every day. Alright. Next we're going to do our dark tone, because I'm really trying to wait for that soft tone to hopefully drip all the way down to the bottom of the bottle. So, dark tone. We're going to apply this to everything that's not yellow that we haven't washed already. So the whole armor is getting this. I did not thin it at all. We're just putting it straight on there. It's going to darken up that spaceship exterior quite a bit, but it will flow and it will let us have the chance to highlight it. So this is going to go all over the red. It will not go on the straps on his legs, so this will get soft tone, just because of where they're at. So hopefully I'm still live for y'all. Haven't heard from any of y'all in a bit, if you're still watching out there. If you're watching, let me know. Appreciate it. While I'm thinking about it, you can find me on Twitter at xxnerfherderxx. Nerfherder, just like scruffy looking Nerfherder. Find me on Facebook at Jagged Brush Studios. 3 words. Wick some of this wash off that's gathering in places that I don't want it to be. Alright, on to the other Bossk. Usually I order my paints more sooner than I did this time. I did not realize I was getting that low. We're going to wash the grenade with this black as well. I did not realize I was getting as low as I was on my soft tone. So, look, we're an hour and 45 minutes in. We have 2 Bosks completely base coated. We are applying our wash. So, if you say you don't have time to paint, I challenge you to find time, because it's an hour and 45 minutes. I have 2 Bosks. You could honestly table them after this wash if you wanted to, but we're going to push them to just that next level. But base coat, wash, and you have table ready Bosks. If you wanted to stop here, would be perfectly fine. I would be willing to bet that people would tell you your Bossk looks great. See? If you stopped right there. Adjust my cameras or my lights so you can see a little bit better. And we haven't even washed the uniform yet. We're going to do that right now. Soft tone. This is going to be a stretch to see if I have enough. Should have just enough for both Bosks. All over. Everything else gets this. You don't have to be too neat with it. Everything exposed is getting this soft tone wash that has not been already washed yet. Make sure you get all the little nooks and crannies that are easy to miss. And I'm trying to work pretty rapidly because I'm going to want to go back and get some of the areas where it's pooling with a brush that I've wiped off. And get it to not pool in certain areas where it's getting heavily pooled. So, clean my brush off, dry it a little bit, and just go pull some of it. It will make your highlighting later a little bit easier. Especially on like the tops of these arms. Alright, next one. Again, try to work quick, that way you can go back and clean off some of that wash if you missed it. Make it centered back in my stream here. Again, I apologize for that. I am still trying to find a comfortable way to sit and stream. Well, I'm just practicing staying on stream ultimately. Applying it, letting it sit for a second, and then wicking off some of it so that it doesn't pool excessively in the areas I don't want it to. Alright, like I said, now that we have it washed, and I missed his knee on this one. You could stop there if you wanted to. And you have a very good looking Bossk. Same thing on both of them. So, what I do need to do is I need to step away for a couple minutes while we wait for this wash to dry, because we can't paint any further until our wash is dry. So, take a break. I'm going to go grab a drink, step away into the little boy's room, and we will be right back. Alright, I am back. Refreshed and ready to go. I need some water real quick though. Alright. Wash is still drying on some areas on these guys. But our skin is mostly dry, so we can get to working on highlighting some of that. So, for our highlights, I'm throwing my paints all over my desk. Back to our sulfide ochre. We are just going to do single color highlights. Trying to keep it simple. So for almost all of my highlighting, I use my fine tip brush that I was mentioning earlier. And what we're going to do, well, for most of the skin we're going to do single color highlights. On the face we're going to take it just a touch further though. But before I do highlights, we got to do our eyes. So, what I'm going to do for my eyes, I did this on the other Bossk, is we're going to go into that abomination gore that we used around his collar. That's going to be our base tone color for our eyes. Bossk has a red eye exterior, black dot in the middle, and then we're going to add a little sunburst white spot. So then you paint out pretty well. And it's going to be real easy. We're going to pick up a drop on the tip of our brush here, and we're going to dot his eye. We want it to flow and fill in that eye socket. So, and it may take a couple coats, but since it's a small area, it'll dry pretty rapidly. So let me see if I can get it up here so you can see what I'm doing. And the reason we do this is if we miss, we can touch up anything that we mess up with our highlights. Again, thin it down. Touch that eye. Get it nice and red. It needs to look like you need some Visine. Second Bossk. I need to check to make sure my mic's working. Did I unmute it? I am bad at that. There we go. So touching that eye up. Try to get up close so you can see. Alright, now that they're both dry, we're going to take some of that necromancer cloak. And we're not going to thin it very far. I don't want it thinned hardly at all for this. We're going to get a dab on there, and we're just going to drop right in the middle of the eye. In both eyes. Make sure he's looking the same direction in both eyes though when you do the dots, because if not, you'll end up with a goofy looking Bossk who looks like he's cross-eyed. And nobody likes a cross-eyed lizard. And if you mess up, get your wet brush, rinse the eyelid out, and you can start over with red paint if you got to. Like that. Because I messed up. So we'll let that area dry real quick. Get some more red again. Thin it out just a bit. And repaint my eye. His eye was still too wet for me to do that on this one. So we'll go back to this other guy and his eyes, because they're a little bit drier. And then the last step that we'll use on this eye is we're going to take just a little dot, little tiny bit on the tip of our brush, and we're going to do some sunspots. Make sure your sunspots are in roughly the same on each eye. And that's what it looks like. Let's see if we're dry over on the side. Nope, we need to do some more red touching. Alright. Alright, next necromancer cloak. Small dots right in the middle of the eye. Alright, towards my brush. Spaceship exterior. Little tiny sunspot. Little tiny sunspot. Ta-da. It's those little details like those little sunspots that really make them pop in person. So, alright. Now to highlighting the face. So, we're going to take some sulfide ochre, and we're going to touch above the eyebrows, right below the eyes, and across the bridge of the nostril. So, dot the scales above the eyes, across the other nostril, right below the eyes. He has these areas on the front of his mouth. Basically anywhere that he has protrusions on his face is going to get little dots of ochre. And I'm not thinning it down too much because it's scaly. The only area I will is for his little ear things, knobs, nibs, whatever they are. Those will get just a little bit of thinning because it's a larger area. Alright. And make sure you pick out as many scales as you can. I know it's time consuming, but this part is worth it, especially on the face. Spend more time highlighting the face because it's the focal point of your miniature. That's another painting trick that I've learned. Highlight the areas you want people to look at. So if there's a part of your model you're like, it looks alright, I don't feel like repainting it, but I'm not particularly happy with it, highlight away from that. Typically your focal point's going to be your face of your miniature. Or the head area. So what we'll end up doing on all of our highlighting is we will highlight more brightly as we get towards the face, across the entire miniature. He's got this nice brow ridge that runs directly up his head, so make sure you highlight that up. After highlights. So, same thing on our other Bossk. Front of the mouth. Dot the scales above the eyes, underneath the eyes. Honestly, this is the part that takes the longest, but remember, we've only spent 2 hours painting these guys yet, and that was including about a 10-minute break. Take your time on this part if you're doing this. Especially, like I said, on the face. Take your time on the face. You can brush highlight the rest of them, but the face is going to make or break your bottles. Not just on this one, on every miniature you do. If they have a face or a head or head armor or something, one quick way to make it look like you know much better is to draw your attention to the things you want people to see. Alright, so what I'm going to do is we're going to do the same thing. We're going to pick out some scales across his arms and his legs, but only on the tops of the arms and legs. The stuff underneath wouldn't be highlighted like that, so and we're not going to do every single one. We're just going to touch on some. The tops and sides. And then the thumb. And there's this ridge that runs along the back of his hand. Make sure to highlight that up. Same thing on the other side. Ridge. Top of the hand. And then start dotting out some of those. Just randomly pick some scales to dot out. If you try to get every single one, you're going to be here all day. And at 3 feet, you're never going to see them. And then we'll do the tops of the toe ridges here on this side. We'll pick out some of the scales on the outside of his leg. We're not going to do the inside because those would be shaded, right? I'm going to do the outside toe here. I got a little bit more paint on there than I wanted, so wet it. Take your brush that's clean and you can clean it off that way. Let that area dry before you apply any paint from the water. So on the back of his leg here, we'll just dot in some of those highlights that we were talking about while we're waiting for that to dry. There we go. But make sure you don't just do like an abrupt stop line of your highlighting. Kind of blend it as you're going into fewer scales. Same thing coming down the sides of the arms. Alright, to our other Bossk. Same thing, ridge of the hand. Real heavy highlighting around the hand, and then just dot some of our scales out. We're going to do more towards the top of his arm, and we're going to do less as we move down the sides. I talk a little bit less during this part because I'm concentrating, I am sorry. And it would be a lot of me just repeating over and over what I'm doing. Which is dotting paint on a miniature, essentially. The difference between this stream and why it may run a little bit longer than the other Bossk is I'm also going to do the bases. And I didn't do the bases on the other one. Well, I didn't do scenic bases as much as I used Dan Wolf's bases that he's using for his army. Which are beautiful, but they're easy to do. So... You could dry brush these scales if you wanted to. I don't dry brush a whole lot, but you could. Alright, for some facial highlights, to go just a step further, we're going to pull some of our moon dust over. And we're going to mix it with some of our sulfide ochre, just to bring that tone up just a touch. So, if you can see, this right here is my sulfide ochre, this right here is my moon dust sulfide ochre mix, and it will help. We're just going to do some of this on the very tips of the areas on the face. So we're going to hit the top of the brow ridge, small dots right below the eyes, right across the nostrils, right on the front of the mouth. Really want to make this guy pop in the face. And then, last but not least, we're going to hit the tops of the brow ridge again. Or the ridge across his head, whatever those are called. And the tips of the ears. Ear nubs, whatever they are. Maybe pick out a few select scales on his forehead. Same thing on the other guy. Right at the front of the mouth. Be sparing with this brighter yellow color. If you do too much, it loses its effect. So, make sure you pick out those areas that you're like, yep, I really want people to pay attention around the eyes, for example. Because you put the detail on the eyes, draw people's eyes there to look at it. And I would do the ridges on the back of the hands as well, with this. Again, sometimes with these smaller highlights, less is more. With these brighter highlights. Maybe a few select scales picked out on there, on the very top. Just a few. Remember, we're not going to do the legs at all with this because we want to draw natural, brighter highlights up towards the face. Same thing here, just a few on the tops of the arms. And that's going to be that. Alright. Next up we're going to work our way down his body. After I do a little touching up of some highlights on the side of this guy's face. Same thing on my other one. working our way down. We're going to grab some more of that abomination gore. And we're going to highlight the collar a little bit, just around the back of it. And then the top of the hose. We'll do the same thing here. Collar. And then the top of the hose. And I'm using a pretty thick paint for this. That way it applies easily. And then front of the collar. Front of the collar. Alright. To flip my wet palette around, we're going to go into our spaceship exterior. Thin it down just a touch. And we're going to draw out some of these ridge lines. So first we're going to go right here on top of the hose. Then these ridges right here, we're going to try to pick out a few of them. A few of the ones up towards the top. Doesn't have to be perfect. Same thing on the front side. And then last, we're going to use this to get those little, highlight up those little ropes that run along his legs. Thin it out a little bit more. I want to smooth out one of these highlights just a touch. Namely the one in the house. So here's what we did. And we'll do the same thing on the other guy. And you could do as much of this highlighting as you wanted or not. Again, you could have done just the face, and you'd have a very tabletop ready, higher than most tabletop jobs, just by highlighting the face. We're doing a little bit extra to take it just to that next level, to just a little bit higher than tabletop. So I'm not going to do as much highlighting across his chest here because he has a gun in the way. So I did get some white on my necromancer cloak here. So I'm going to take a clean brush and try to get some of that off. Get it wet, brush it right off. Comes right off if you catch it while it's wet. And for this part I typically leave them assembled because I'm not going to spend time on areas, again, that I can't see. So working our way down, we're going to grab some of our necromancer cloak, pull it off to the side, grab just a slight touch of that spaceship exterior. You want to lighten our necromancer cloak for our black highlights. his pure necromancer cloak, and you probably can't even hardly tell the color difference. And right across all the top of the black areas, we're gonna just touch the tops of them. It didn't take a whole lot. If I'm doing a large area of black highlighting, I'll actually use blue instead of a white to highlight the black, because it just gives it more color contrast. But for this, I'm not doing that. So, alright. Next up, we're going to go ahead and do some highlighting on our yellow. So flip around, we need our moon dust. So come into our moon dust, and you're going to want to thin this out fairly decently. And we're going to just pick out some of our highest ridge areas. So right across our knee top here, and just really pick out the ridges. You don't want to lose all of that brown color that you have, because that's what's going to leave your shadows. So pick out the ridges, really make them pop. We're going to do more highlighting up towards the face, remember. As we move up our body, it'll get brighter and brighter. So we'll do heavier highlighting as we move up. So like the tops of the shoulders are going to be almost pure yellow. Your eye is naturally drawn towards brighter colors. Here's where we're at. Alright, on to the other one. Same thing. Pick out some of our highlight ridges. Don't highlight anything facing towards the ground. You can highlight the stuff that's sideways, but make sure you always get the ridges. If you mess up like I did there, again, got a little bit on there, clean your brush, get some water on it, get it wet, take a drier brush, and just run it over that area. It'll take that color right off. But you gotta get it before it's dry. Did I highlight the back? A little bit on this other guy. Didn't get as much as I wanted on the back on this guy. Alright, back to the other one. Remember, we're highlighting more as we get up towards the top of the arms here. We might even mix in a little bit of spaceship exterior and come back over to the tops of the arms after it's all dry, to really lighten that highlight and draw people up to the tops. Alright, while we're waiting for those highlights to dry, I'm going to flip my thing around. We're going to go into our ash gray and we're going to highlight our straps. So all those straps that we got brown, just take some thinned ash gray and highlight them back up again. Just run them across the middle. Really focus on the tops. You don't want to highlight underneath. People won't see that, and it makes it look unnatural. Sorry about that, my finger was hurting. Got a cramp in it. Onto the other Bossk. Same thing. Thin dash gray. Once I upload this for playback, I should be able to put in the description all of the army color paints that I used. I need a cough. I have to mute my mic for a second. Sorry. Alright. We are getting there, guys. We're getting there. We're almost done, actually, with the painting. And then we're on to basing. Almost done. Just a couple other highlight steps we gotta do. And again, you can do as much or as little of this as you want. Like, I just realized I didn't really highlight this guy's butt, so we'll have to come back and do that. So, get some more of that yellow. And touch up his butt. Touch the butt. Touch the butt. Oh, sorry, Rob, I've not been paying attention to chat. Rebel troopers are... I've painted a ton of them. Honestly, it's probably the unit I've painted the most of. I appreciate you. Appreciate the kind comments on Bossk. This is where we are at with the two of them so far. If I could get it in focus. Alright, so as I said, I'm going to pull off some of this moon dust to the side, go into my spaceship exterior just to lighten it a little bit. Well, to contrast out the yellow a little bit, because I want to highlight right on the top of the shoulders with some of that lighter contrast yellow. Really make him shine. And I might even pick out just a couple of select really tall ridges on here. Bossk are great if you're going to run an Imperial army. He's also, I've never played him as a model. He's a whole lot of fun to paint because he's got a lot of detail. FFG has really stepped up their game on these newer models that they're coming out with. I like the multiple poses that you can use and choose from. There's a lot of things to like about Bossk. But from what I hear, he's a very strong model in the game too. So, I didn't realize anybody was still here in the chat. Alright. As I said before, I have... Come on, camera. Get in focus. Leather brown. I already have it on my palette, so I'm not going to pull it out of the pot, but we're going to use leather brown to highlight up our belt. Well, it looks like my leather brown may have dried on my palette. That doesn't usually happen. So, we need some fresh stuff. I think my wet palette needs a little bit of refreshing. So before next stream, I'll have to refresh that up. So, thin out your leather brown, and you're going to go with this. We're going to be pretty heavy with the highlights around the belt on this. Again, we want the appearance of well-worn leather on this, so. Same thing on the other guy. Alright, and then I'm going to take just a little bit of that oak brown that we were pulled out earlier, and I'm going to highlight some of the gun with it, and some of this other brown area. So anywhere, I'm going to do the top of the gun with it, maybe get some of the larger area with it, the buttstock. And then I'm also going to run that oak brown as a highlight along all the little ridges on this guy's leg. Like, not on the leg, but on the little cuff thing on his leg. But only the top side, not all of the ridges. So if it faces up towards the sky or sideways, it's getting a highlight with this. Again, we're farther away from the face at this point, so we're not spending as much highlighting time. Alright. With some of our uniform gray that we had pulled out, we're going to touch up the edges of this box a little bit. Same thing on this guy with the oak brown. Get the top of the weapon. Maybe streak some across the outside, make it look like wood grain. And then highlight these little leg things. But only the ones that face up or out. So one leg you'll get almost all of them, and the other one will only get a few, because it's just the way the leg fits. Same thing on the hand grip. Don't forget to highlight the hand grip. Remember, we went for a wood grain look on the hand grip. Alright. Now we're going to highlight the gun. We're just going to take some gunmetal, pure gunmetal, and do some touch-up highlights across the top of the gun. And thin it out just a little, it's too thick. Across the top of the gun. Alright, I need a little bit more gunmetal, because there are some metallic bits that we missed on purpose, because they would be easy to lose in painting later. So around his leg, all of these little dimples look like they're metallic. On that cuff around his leg, so we're going to pick out as many of those as we can. Just be careful not to bleed over into your other paint. Take your time. Like I just did. If you get it over there, get it wet, take a clean brush, and you can brush it right off. Flood the area with water when that happens. I am by no means a perfect painter. I am a messy painter and I make mistakes. I have learned tricks to cleaning up my mistakes as I have painted. Alright, and then on his belt, you can't see it on this guy, so I'm not going to try to do it, but on the other pose, he's got a couple of those same little canister looking things on his belt. And then we have to get the buckle on his belt also. So he has a little tiny buckle that's real easy to miss, but it's little details like that that's going to make your miniature look better than everybody else's. So make sure you get that buckle. We get it on the other guy too. The quickest way to make your miniature look better than other people's is to make sure you get those details. Alright, we're going to go into our skeleton bone. We're going to do a little bit of highlighting on the toenails. Not much, we want them to look dirty. Just really, and then we'll touch the top of this dew claw back here. We'll bring those fingernails back to life. Same thing on the other guy. Tops of the nails. Bring the fingernails back to life. Get those dew claws on the back. And then we're going to try to get the teeth. Just picking out some. So really fine little bit on there, and we're going to touch the teeth up front. And touch the little molars on the side. Remember, he's a lizard, so he doesn't necessarily have a whole mouthful of teeth. He just has some chompas. Well, the last step we need is the Daxis grenade. So, what I do for that? Jungle green. It's a nice, bright, toxic colored green. Squeeze a little bit out on our palette. We're going to make a glaze out of this. So we're going to take some water and we're going to thin this out just about to the consistency of a wash. And then what we would do is we're going to take some of our spaceship exterior and we're going to put little dots in all these little ridges on the grenade. The reason for that is that when we glaze it, the little white dots are going to be brighter than the rest of the areas, and it'll make it look like it glows. So once that spaceship exterior dries, before it dries though, I'm going to put some glaze in the areas where we didn't put the white, so like around the top of the grenade. Alright, and then we're just going to brush that whole area with some of the green. And then try to soak up enough that it is only in the ridges. I may have went a little too thin for it, so thicken it up and put it back in there again. And you can give this as many applications as you want for it to look the color green that you want it to be. But this is what I'm happy with. And in the picture it'll show up nice. And on mine, I really want to push some of those highlights a little further on the face on my version of Bossk. Some of the eye highlights weren't as bright as I want them to be. Just on my bust. The other bust looks great. So. Okay. I'm thinking if we're done, I've got to do the metal on the leg on this one. On this little bandolier thing, whatever it's called. Almost finished with Bossk's. So once we're all done, we'll have painted 2 Bossk's in less than 3 hours. Because essentially they're painted. You could glue them onto a base right now if you wanted to. A blank base. And you would be all done and ready to play. But I like scenic bases. So we're going to make up a couple scenic bases real quick. If you watched the beginning of the video, I prepped a couple bases earlier. Hopefully they're dry enough. They should be. Prepped a couple bases with some Liquitex Resin Sand mixed with some brown craft paint. Gives you this textured effect. In case you missed it, I will show you what that product looks like again. Liquitex Resin Sand. You can get it at any major hobby store, like craft store, anywhere they sell those things. So what we need to do is we need some strong tone. We're going to do a forest base and a swamp base, but essentially they're going to look very similar. It's just on the swamp base I'm going to put a couple tufts of grass. So strong tone. And we're going to apply it onto our base liberally. I should have done this a long time ago so it would be dry by the time we got to it now. But oh well. Strong tone. Strong tone, strong tone. Liberally onto the base. Same thing here. But it's for this reason I keep a little fan below my desk, as I might have to kick it on, so you may hear a fan in the background. I do apologize for that, but I need to dry these quickly, so I'm not up all night. So, let me plug that in. Find my plug for it. It's unplugged right now because I needed the outlet. Hit my head on everything. Turn my fan on. And I will pop these down in front of the fan. It'll make that wash dry out real quick. So put one on upside down the next one. Pop them down in front of the fan. And then what we'll do is, I'm not closing my wet palette because we're done painting. This is 2 painted Bosks. I'll get them held up to the camera here in a minute so you can see. And then of course there will be pictures on my Facebook page, but 2 completely painted Bosks. Ready to go. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take them apart and glue them together. First thing, pop them off their base. Disarm them. And pull his head off. For super glue, I use Gorilla Glue. Works great for me. Remember, with super glue, less is more. Really push that head down in there. Get that arm on. Get this other arm on. Alright, so that's one Bossk assembled and ready to go. Pop him off. I forgot to mention what I used to hold them on to my hobby holders is just hot glue. Hot glue. And sometimes it leaves little areas right here where you miss the paint because it's stuck there. So just touch it up with your base tone. You will never notice once it dries. I promise. Alright. This Bossk is a little trickier. His gun goes together differently. Alright. Head glue. Really seat it down in there, otherwise you'll see some lines where you missed. One side. Second side, and just a little bit up here in the hand because that's where the gun touches. Doesn't need much. All put together. Oops. All assembled Bossk. Upside down. Ta-da! Alright. Our bases are just about completely dry. It doesn't take long. Almost. A little bit of pooling left. What I will do, or what I'm going to do with them, is we will end up dry brushing them with desert yellow. For the swamp one, we're going to do leather brown. And for the forest woods one, we're going to do desert yellow. For my forest, I have a box of bits. Whenever I go camping out with my kids, I pick up junk. And so I'm going to find some of these little... I've got crushed up leaves in here. All kinds of just little junk stuff that I get as we're out. So I'm going to put some of this stuff. And it makes it look really cool and realistic when you base them. So, crushed up leaves. You don't have to pay for expensive basing materials. Just go find stuff. In fact, I'm pretty sure I told my kids that if they went and picked up stuff while they were out, I would give them something for it. So I'm going to break a couple pieces of twigs off here. I may actually... I am tempted to stand one up like this on the base and make it look like Bossk is standing by a tree. That may be something that I do. Yeah, for mine, which is forest, we're gonna have Bossk standing next to a tree. Probably. We'll see. So for my swamp base one, he's just gonna get mostly grass, and I'll probably stick one of those little swampy looking things sticking up out of the ground. Yep, and he'll get a tuft of grass on his. So. Almost done drying on the bases. The other thing I need is my grass application bucket. Ta-da. Dollar store bucket. I leave my grass in there like this. Put my basins in there with some glue on it. That's how I apply my grass. And what I use to stick it to it, there's this wonderful product called washable glue. This brand is Crazy Glue. I get some of that squeezed out real quick. That's what I use to stick all my glue. It's just PVA glue. What you may have heard it called is PVA glue. I think I got this for $1 a bottle at the old Wall of Marts. Mart of Walls. And I've got 3 or 4 bottles of it. I just keep it on hand. So, first step though, we've got to dry brush our bases as soon as they're dry. And they're about dry enough. So, I have a specific dry brush in mind. It's not that one. There's this one. And so all you need for a dry brush is I take a brush, I paid like a couple bucks for it, and I just wear the heck out of a brush. On purpose. You don't have to do that. You can just use old brushes, but get your bristles all nice and junky and kind of going all over the place. And what you need to do is, from my forest base, squeeze out some of that desert yellow. You're gonna pick up some brush on there, some paint, and on a dry paper towel, you're going to brush most of it off. And see how it started doing that, and then as it gets over here, now I'm going to leave it a little bit heavier than typical dry brushing. But dry brushing, you want to make sure that you're getting off almost no paint when you're ready to go. And then I'm just going to run it over the base. Again, this isn't perfect dry brushing because most of this is going to be covered with grass and other stuff. And then I may even come into some of that sulfide ochre that I'd used on him and really just hit the tops of some of that dirt. And we get an earthy tones. Like that. Alright, so for the other one, leather brown, I squeezed out a lot more than I intended to. Same thing, rub off as much as possible on the dry part, but I'm leaving it a little bit wet just for the bases. Alright. Really make sure you clean your dry brushes out because you're pushing a whole bunch of paint up into the bristles. And while it tends to be a crappy brush you don't care about, it makes it really hard to dry brush if they're all stuck together. So, then the way I apply my PVA paint is I have just a crappy old brush that is glued together the bristles. Get some paint on there, PVA glue I mean, and just brush it into the areas where I want grass to be. And this is just completely random. How much grass or how little you put on your stuff, completely up to you. And then get my grass applicator bucket out and dunk so right in there. And then you'll hear me blow it off onto the side. My wife hates this step because it blows grass tufts all over. Here's where we're at. This is going to be our swamp-ish space. I have some army painter grass tufts. I haven't gotten new ones yet because I'm going to make my own after this. So I'm going to pick somewhere on here where I want this grass tuft to be, and I think he's going to live right there. Put a general helping. They are self-adhesive, but I have found that a little bit of PVA glue really helps it stick. So, stick that on there. And then last but not least, we have this little swampy looking, I don't know, it came off of a bush or tree or something. But I'm going to break it down a little bit. It was just a touch long for what I wanted. We're going to touch some PVA glue on there. And we're going to make that grow out of the ground somewhere. And then, last but not least, we're going to take our Bossk, put some super glue on him, and find the way that we like him to stick on the base. One completed based Bossk. Start to finish in 3 hours, but we didn't just do one. We did 2 Bosks. And so trying to figure out the best way, and if I even like this Bossk being like that against the tree. Yeah, I do. Alright, so step 1 is going to be our PVA glue to get some of our grass around the tree. And I try to leave some of the natural ridges left by the Liquitex Resin Sand. So if you cover your whole base in grass, it just looks unnatural. So leave some dirt showing, unless you're going for a complete plains look. I mean, if that's what you're doing, I have my boxo grass off to the side. Dunk. I'm gonna cover this blow off the grass. Super glue. I really want to make sure I have a file. I'm gonna file down the end of this tree because I really want to make sure I get a really good adhesion spot that's flat. Super glue. And we're gonna stick that tree right onto the base. And then super glue Bossk's foot so that he can go on his base. This bottle's getting empty of super glue. Be careful when your bottle of super glues are getting empty, or your bottles of super glue, because they like to spit after, and then you'll get stuff all over your model that you don't want on there. Alright, let's add some of these other little bits. So, PVA glue. I want to branch down here in front of him. Take my little tweezers. They have been an invaluable tool for basing. And stick it right where I want it. And then use the tweezers to press it down into the glue. We need a rock. It is a forest. There are rocks in the forest. Dip my rock in the PVA glue. We're going to put a rock on this side over here. We're going to take our little ground up leaves. We're going to put them on the base right by the tree over here. These are just leaves that I took and crushed up. And I think we'll take a stick. Put another stick right next to this rock against this tree, like this. Alright, rinse off mine. Now, I want to make it look like there's little bits of vine on that tree. And sorry, I'm digging through some materials over here. I'm trying to find some of my flocking material that I use. It's a dark green. But I can't find it right now, so we may just skip that and make this look like a younger tree. So, it's actually what we might do is just leave this younger. No, I have some lichen. We'll use some lichen. So, we've got some of this moss. I'm going to pull just a little bit off. I'm going to take my tree and I'm going to paint it right onto the tree branch with some PVA glue. stick that right on there. And sometimes you have to apply some PVA glue directly onto the moss and just let it dry for a little bit. Stuff is a little hard to work with. But it's little bits like this that are going to make your model stand out compared to everybody else. So, that being said, we are done with our live stream for tonight. I appreciate you coming by. Thank you for spending some time with me as we worked on Bossk. Let me get these two lined up real quick next to each other. Let you see what the final projects look like. 2 complete Bossk miniatures. 3 hours and 8 minutes, including about a 10-minute break in the middle. And starting the stream earlier, so realistically we probably painted these two up and based them in 2 hours and 45 minutes. So, next time you think you don't have time to paint, find the time. Again, this is Dustin with Jagged Brush Studios. Thanks for stopping by. Get out there and paint more minis. Have a good night.